Good morning. Welcome, Dr. Dastidar. I thank you for finding out the time to have a conversation with us. And I would quickly like to introduce you to our audiences. So Dr. Dastidar is a former advisor and former senior scientist in the Ministry of Earth Sciences of Government of India. He has more than 2 decades of experience in science and technology management. Dr. Dastidar conducted experiments on penguin behavior in Antarctica. He's presently involved in the mapping of penguin brain. So he's also an expert in modeling of science and technology development, visualization of knowledge, research and analytics, among other things. So at present, he is a visiting professor at SGT University in Gurugram. So thank you, sir, for joining us. And with your years of expertise that you bring on the table here, we are very honored to have you for this conversation. So I'll quickly get started with our discussion. So as with the behavioral review, we attempt to bridge the gap between research and public. We make small observations around behavior that contributes to larger questions of the society. So for that to be done, what we do is that we dive into research papers to make connections, to find evidence for a particular phenomena that we have observed. And so when we read a research paper or when we look at a research paper per se, we also recognize that it is not a standalone effort. It's not a standalone document in itself. It is rather a contribution of the predecessors. Like it is the work, that document that it presents is contributed by the work of early researchers exploring the similar questions. And for that to be recognized, we have a list of references of prior publications at the end of the document that is embedded in the literature. But what we see is that there are 2 things which we find interconnected: references and citations. Suppose if I have written a scientific paper, then I refer to previous work and acknowledge that in my paper. Whereas citation is the acknowledgement that I will receive when someone builds up further on that particular knowledge. So my first question to you, Dr. Dastidar, is that you have done a lot of work on science management. So what is citation analysis, and how does it connect the cited as well as the citing documents?
Okay. First of all, I thank you very much for inviting me for this discussion. This discussion is very important, particularly when we are facing an information explosion. The growth of knowledge is taking place at an unprecedented speed now. I was quickly looking into Web of Science database. For example, I give you some statistics. From 1970 to 1990, we have published around 27 lakhs papers all over the world. This is a global database.
Wow.
But in 2021, in a single year, 25 lakh papers are uploaded in Web of Science. So I am not talking about Scopus, I am not talking about other citation and indexing databases. I am talking about Web of Science, which is a refined database, and they take less number of journals which are representative of global enterprise of knowledge. So in this context, the citation analysis has become rather very important, because as a human being, we look at the world with our senses. At a given point of time, you cannot look more than 4 or 5 words.
The keywords,
And
yes.
you cannot look more than 4 or 5 words, and therefore to grasp the knowledge which are there in this huge amount of literature, number of literature, it is not possible for a human being to do that. So therefore, these new subjects have come up, and with the advent of computer databases, these subjects, these analytical techniques are getting refined every day. It is getting refined. So you have rightly introduced that during your introductory talk. You have rightly said that a research paper is having a number of components. It has title, it has author name, it has a affiliation of the author, he is working in which institute. It has a content, the body of knowledge, where what the author has found during his research work, that is listed there, and followed by a very important thing of references you find. Mm-hmm. That's what you are talking about. These references are very, very important, because these references are not written by the author alone. These references are coming from all over the world. So these references are having two dimensions. It is having cited dimension, it is having citing dimension. And in 1965, there was a remarkable paper published by one historian of science. His name is Derek J.D. Sola Price. He is considered as the father of scientometrics. So he first, for the first time, he published a paper saying that the scientific papers are networked. These papers are interconnected. These papers are interconnected through cognition, through the subject affinities, and it follows some mathematical regularities. So when something is following mathematical regularities, having a mathematical base or a statistical base, you can easily model that. So this is the, a good thing available with us. You can call it as a citation analysis, you can call it as a bibliometrics analysis, you can call it as a knowledge dynamics or science and technology studies. Whatever way you want to say this, we are studying basically the papers, the productivity of the countries, authors, how the papers are the units of knowledge, how the papers are interconnected, and through this we are able to identify the core clusters of knowledge. And why it is so important? Because instead of getting lost in 25 lakhs papers which are published in 2021, if you get a core number of papers of very refined and clean data, this is a clean data. In the world of knowledge, data cleaning is very, very important. Standardization and cleaning of data is very, very important. So here comes the importance of citation analysis.
Yes, sir. So, as you have correctly mentioned about this information explosion that we are currently experiencing, this information load, it's everywhere. We open social media, we go to some journals, we go to Scopus, it's everywhere. So, in an age of endless papers, and you have rightly said that these research papers can be called as unit of knowledge. So if we have like 25 lakhs clean unit of knowledges every year, so how as a researcher how are we going to deal with the fear of missing out of knowledge? Because this can be a personal question from my side or from my colleagues who are in research. How do we tackle this information overload? This is this needs to be answered.
Yes. That is a very, very important point. when these subjects, new subjects, I would say, these are not historical techniques. Historical means, it came up in 100 years, 200 years back. It just came up some 50 years or 70 years back. And backed by this development of these subjects are backed by computer technologies, computer and communication technologies, you mind it. So it has born with a new technology at her hand. Surprisingly, most of us, we are not aware about these tools and techniques. When a researcher or a student or even a faculty wants to take up research in a particular field of interest, very few researcher will take little trouble to do this analysis to find out his core clusters of his domain and what is the trend of his field of studies, who are the peers in his or her field of studies, which institutes are prolific institutes producing significant research work in his or her field, who are the competitors, and how this knowledge, documented knowledge, is being transformed into knowledge economy. This is another dimension. This, out of these huge 25 lakhs papers which we are talking about, hardly very few or a very small percentage of this huge number will be transformed into commercial products. So a good researcher will take this little trouble to avoid further trouble in his research career, to do this analysis, to find out which are the areas he should concentrate, who are the people most who contribute significantly in his or her field, which papers are most cited papers, who are working with whom, what is the collaboration structure in his field of interest, because collaborations are, it is subject dependent. In technology, the structure of collaboration will not be same as the structure of collaboration in science or even structure of collaboration in humanities. In some subject of research, collaboration is money, collaboration is your profitability. So it has different dimensions. So that's what we are thinking, that these kind of techniques should be taught formally in academic institutes, and so that students are benefited, and instead of producing something which is less impactful or more in number, he or she should concentrate producing something which is more impactful but less in number. So that is the idea.
I think you very rightly pointed out that out of these 25 lakh research papers that we have every year, how many of them are going to get converted into a commercial product or even for use for public purposes? And what we more and more see is that people do not generally relate with the research. I mean, are they even aware about that this is something happening and this is about them? This is not about Mars or something. This is about people who are living here. So when we talk about citation analysis, as you see that there are also differences in from where this knowledge is getting produced. Like, I would want to know, like, all of us would want to know that what countries have the largest share of world's highly cited papers, highly cited scientific documents, or is there which country, what part of the world can contribute to more knowledge, more scientific knowledge every year. And is there like a ranking system in place? And if there is, then can you show more light on where does our country, where does India stand? And what more do we need to work upon?
Okay. No, this is a very important question you have raised. You have raised two things basically. One is which countries are producing more, that is more productive countries, and then ranking. In fact, this ranking itself can be a subject of our discussion maybe another day, because ranking is very complex. It is not a one parameter system through which you can say that he is good or he is bad. It follows a power law distribution. That means small number of countries are producing a significant amount of knowledge, and the countries which are there in the frequency distribution table, if you make a frequency distribution table of the productivity of the countries, you will see, as I have worked on Antarctica science, we have seen that like around I did this work some 15 years back, which is a seminal document in Antarctic science. This National Science Foundation of USA has recognized this. This is around 20 countries or 15 countries account for 80% of the productivity in the subject. So this is a Pareto's distribution, in fact. So small number of countries are holding more wealth. It is connected with it is similar pattern is seen in wealth distribution also, which is a Pareto's distribution. So for every subject, if you do this frequency distribution table, like a very small, subjects like Antarctica science, this is not like physics or chemistry, you will see some particular countries, they account for a maximum number of, productivity in their particular subject. So it all depends on their social, requirement, their economic requirement, and their intellectuality. All these things are contributing to developing a intellectual base of that particular place. Even in India, you will see that all the states are not contributing equally. There are some states they are doing good in some particular subject. There are some states they are less subject. There are some states they are good in one area, not knowledge in, let's say, in sports or some other activities. Another state is good in doing academics or research. It is like this. So this there is no one line answer that which countries are doing better, but generally it is seen that the developed countries like USA, etc., Germany, they are, even France, their contribution in knowledge production is very significant. But also Israel, they spend a lot of money in research. So it is also a matter of your investment, and an investment is linked with your productivity and output at the end of the day.
Yes, sir.
And yes, I think I have answered to your ranking, whatever you have asked on ranking also, because ranking also is intimately linked with this, and there are different ranking systems, the time ranking, QS, ranking. In India, we have ranking systems. So you will see the parameters which are considered for the ranking of the institutes or the countries, it varies from ranking system to system. Times ranking, whatever they will use, the QS will be use something different, So there is no one parameter through which you can rank the countries uniformly. There is no uniform criteria to rank the institutes.
I think we should have a discussion in future about this ranking system and what are the parameters that on which we decide the ranking.
That is a good idea.
At the behavioral review, we also do recognize the tragedy, which is opportunity. So that there exists an opportunity gap between developed and developing countries. And there's this playing field that all academics have to sort of face. And so how do we level that playing field where there's, for academics, where there's so much of disparities? So how do we, how this citation analysis is going to benefit the academics from the non-Western or from the developing world? If we do focus citation analysis and then contribute to the research, how is it going to benefit?
Yeah, again, this is also a very important question you have raised. The citation analysis is a technique which is a global technique. Science and technology and knowledge production, it is not a country specific, and it is a good thing we have these tools and techniques in front of us. Through citation analysis, we will be able to connect ourselves to the global enterprise of science and technology. If we don't do, then we will be doing something isolated, and there is many examples. After spending a lot of money, effort, manpower, time, you have come to know that somebody already has done that work. So I think I think that if you have 7 days to do some project work, you spend 2 days to prepare yourself to do this citation analysis. I consider this is like a market survey. If you are going to do a good business, if you want to do good business, you want to make your business sustainable, if you want to make your business profitable, then you spend 2 days to do the market survey. Citation analysis is something like market survey, where you will sell your product, who are the most important people, who can be your competitor, who are collaborating with whom, how much they are investing. All these questions will be answered if you do this analysis. And automatically you will be connected with the global enterprise of science and technology and knowledge. So, so this divide between this developed and developing will be less. And, personally I feel that if somebody is sincere and honest, now getting connected with these global databases may not be that difficult. There are some libraries are open access. There is so much of open access information available nowadays. But you need to analyze very carefully. Everybody will not be able to do, and find out that what are the resources you will keep with you to go ahead in your life with your activity.
I mean, I must agree with you, sir. Like when we talk about citation analysis and the global science revenue, this is not just limited to one discipline. This needs to be fostered across silos of disciplines so that we maximize the impact of research. Yes, so when we talk about this, I mean, there are a lot of
No,
things in my head.
Fazli, let me finish. I think this 7 days project work, I would I would like to complete this. So you spend 2 days to do this market survey, and maybe 3 days to do your project. 3 days out of 7 days you are doing 3 days to do the project, because you have a plan. 2 days you have worked to make your plan. 3 days you do the project, and one day you get feedback. You discuss with your colleagues, your peers. They will tell you how to improve this, and then you can leave it in the market. And one day, the last day, you use for refinement, packaging, for all these things, to take the feedback, implement those feedbacks. Then your project life cycle will be sustainable, and you will be able to go ahead more, strongly. Then if you don't plan yourself properly, it will be a kind of a half-hearted, scattered work. So I very strongly feel that this kind of analysis is very, very important. This is very similar to market survey. If somebody is a good businessman, always will do a market survey. He will never come in a market without doing market survey. So for a researcher, he has to spend a considerable amount of time, maybe 25% of his total time he is devoted for the research work, 25% during, when he starts or she starts the project, and then maybe at the end, during the feedback implementation stage also, he or she has to go through again another round, that if he or she has missed something, or if something can be put in place to give his or her product a complete, a shape, which can be readily absorbed in the market.
Yes, I mean, I really like how you simplified research with markets, and just so that we understand that how easy it is to maintain our research footprint. It's not that difficult or complex as it might seem from outside. So, sir, can you quickly put light on what are the bibliometrics and cytometric indicators?
Okay, this is again a very good question. So regarding this bibliometrics and cytometrics, very quickly I'll tell you. Biblio means, in Greek, it's a book, and metrics is a system of measurement. So bibliometrics is a technique. Using that, you will be able to analyze the growth. Of course, here it goes beyond books. It is mostly papers, and these techniques can also be used in social media also. So you will be able to know the productivity of the units. Units means the author at the individual level, authors, organizations, the countries. Then citing documents. If somebody has published 10 papers or 20 papers, how many papers are getting cited? You will be surprised that there are very well-known journals, with high impact factor journals. There are some percentage of papers are not cited at all. Even it happens with Nature and Science. And it is again not a very, in one sentence you can explain all these things. There is another very interesting phenomenon scientists have observed, that there is a sleeping beauty. So have you heard about this term? Sleeping beauty in science. Sleeping beauty, sleeping beauty, there are some very, very important papers when those papers are published, nobody will see them, nobody will recognize them. But even after 60 years, 70 years, 100 years, suddenly people will be interested about those papers and they will start working on that. So, today morning when I was preparing for this interview, I was looking into some literature on this. Even Einstein, one paper, this is a very important paper. That's what I would like you to know. This can quantum mechanical description of physical reality be considered complete? This is about our existence. Einstein is talking about in this paper. So this paper was published in 1935, but this awakening year for this paper is 1995. So you can imagine a scientist like Einstein, it took 60 years for people to recognize a paper. What would happen for other scientists to, So when we are talking about a citation, we have to also keep it in mind this kind of phenomenon which are there in the publishing world. So citedness is a parameter. You wanted to know about the bibliometrics, whether how many documents are getting cited, okay, and then again how many papers are self-cited. There are papers only cited by the author himself or herself. So self-citation also is an indicator of something, and then sometimes you can remove that number, sometimes you can include it. My view is self-citation also is important, because if you write a good paper in a good journal to cite yourself, you have to write, you have to do good work, then only you will cite your work. So it has its own importance, and then there are different kind of normalizations are used. For example, impact factor. For example, the impact factors are subject dependent. The impact factor for a life science journal will be different from a social science journal, will be different from a behavioral science journal. So the standard way is, you normalize the subjects according to the field, and then you get the number. So it is not that you can compare apple with orange. You should compare apple with apple only. So these are the some of the parameters. Again, the connectedness also is important. Who are collaborating with whom, and through this you get into the world of the co-citations and shared references. There are some citations; those citations go together. So these are co-citations and then shared references, and these parameters will tell you the emerging areas, or if you do the main path analysis, how a subject is growing, then if the first thing you have to do, you have to reduce the noise in the data. So this parameter can be used to do that. And of course there are other parameters, like people are using the productivity of the faculty. If you rank one institute with other, then people would like to see that what is the productivity of one institute if you want to compare with other institute. And then if you see the quality of the output, that what is the citation number, it is getting. Because citations are will tell you that what is the impact of your research. So when scientists do something, if somebody is using that research, that means it has some importance. So these are the parameters, some of the parameters, and it can go on and on, depends on your purpose and your objective. Like in India, some of the ranking system, it seems they are also using that gender issues are also getting addressed in those ranking systems, but traditionally in some other global systems they may not use the gender issues, because globally may not be this is that important, because already gender issues they have taken care of. This all depends on your objective and your social requirement, and you design your own parameters, or apart from the classical, there are parameters people use for different purposes. You can also design your own parameters.
So you have talked about citation on papers and how in highly impactful journals as well, there are papers who may not receive any citation at all. So this is like a very curious question, even for early career researchers, that can citation reflect the merit of their work at all? Or, I mean, from your experience, can you reflect back on the uses and abuses of citation analysis, if there is?
Yes, of course. Yes, it does reflect the impact of a paper, because nowadays in a globalized world, it's a common sense that we cannot influence so many people. They are working in different locations in the world. So it does reflect impact of a work, but again, yes, it can be abused also for any ranking system or whatever we talk about. It has some other side of the story also. As I told you, that sometimes it happens. It's good that you have asked this question. Sometimes it happens that if you use gross parameters without normalizing that, sometimes it gives it a wrong picture. Suppose, for example, if let's say Bangladesh is producing in some field some 10 papers, and India is producing some, let's say, 15 papers, or US is producing some 20 papers, and then we cannot say that US is doing better or India is doing better, because Bangladesh's size of their activity, knowledge activity, research activities are smaller than USA or maybe even India. So if you take into consideration during your analysis, if you normalize that according to size of the countries, then maybe you will be getting a right picture. So yes, you have to be conscious about all these things. So that is why citation analysis, we very strongly feel, should not be done by everybody. Citation analysis is not only number. Numbers can give you wrong impression, and these citations, impact factors, etc., sometimes can be used for taking decisions about the professional growth, the promotions, etc. So unless the analyst is aware of all these elements involved in it, the positive side and negative side of it, he or she should not be taken up this kind of analysis unless the point which I want to make is unless somebody is serious enough and have a total understanding from different dimensions like socioeconomics and the policy of the institute, policy of the country, he or she should not be taken up these subjects, this analysis in isolation. It can be a disaster. We can kill a person's future by just a stroke of a pen or a number. You have seen even Einstein papers are not recognized initially. I have given an example.
Okay, so we do realize that there is an emerging need to advance the competence of faculty and researchers, especially in the developing countries, which are not much aware about the citation analysis. So to adequately prepare them for this, can you point to resources for learning citation analysis, the cytometrics, subiometrics? It'll be better if they are free, because we need to have the courses like that, so that more people can have rigorous learning and fluent in their research. So can you show some examples where we can have the access to all of it?
Yes, in our university, in SGT University, we are planning to introduce a course on research ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So all elements of research will be taught, and we will encourage the students who are coming for doing research. They should take this course. Even the faculty can take up this course, and we will encourage them that they at least some groundwork for one chapter for their PhD can be completed. And that every PhD thesis will have a literature review. So the cytometrics and bibliometrics, these techniques can help you only to improve that chapter. These are all improved version of the age-old literature review techniques which we used to do when there was no computer, etc. We had to sit in the library. Now everything can be done using computers. But again, here also there is noise, there is data, huge data. There is information overload. So to reduce the knowledge and get into your core cluster, as you call, which is very clean data, that is very, very important. So let's see that if we can introduce this course, and I'm sure that people will be benefited.
Also scale up this course, because this is very important to India.
Of course. Initially we'll be having 2 credit course, that is around 30 hours. So, and then we can do an advanced course where the advanced techniques will be taught.
Yes, I'm really glad to know about that there is such a plan in existence already. Thank you. I mean, I would like to, I'm actually going to draw this conversation to a close. So thank you so much for joining. And we have realized from this very highly informative discussion with you that how much insights are needed in citation analysis to have focused research done and produce quality content, and not go after the quantity that I publish 10 papers in a year, which are the 2 but have high impact ones. So with your expertise, we got scholarly learnings today, and I'm hoping that this will inspire some people to engage with the work that we are currently doing. And, thank you so much for joining us, sir. And we really look forward to future discussions and to learn more about this, to get into more details in future. we hope we can do something like that. This can be a great collaboration.
It was a great pleasure for me. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.